I grew up in an Italian household with the World Cup 1982 win by Italy blaring on the VHS every chance my dad could get. So I was indoctrinated into loving football from a very early age, but I was never able to play. I played with the boys at school. I was a tomboy. I'd follow my brothers to training and I'd always get their age-old criticism of, I'm a girl, there's no girls playing, you can't do anything, until I met a friend of primary school friends, and the dad was coaching the team at my local soccer club, and he allowed me to play in the team. But in terms of on the ground, somebody actually pushing me, it was definitely my mum. Because every turn I made, I was always met with something that would block me. And my mum, being an advocate for females, she said, no, I'll find you a team that has a team full of females. And so I picked up my first team at South Melbourne, and she found it in the yellow pages. So if you can think, going all the way to S, it took her a while. And then didn't realise I was any good until I was 16. So when I came, I got a call up to the national team with a squad of about 30. We were playing Aussie A versus Aussie B in these Coffs Harbour matches. And when I turned up to that obviously tough camp, where not only you had all these senior players as a 16-year-old, but you had cliques, you had things that you had to contest with. I was trying to do an Italian exam. We trained twice in the first day, and I was barely training twice a week at that stage. So I got lots of blisters. I got a chipped bone in my foot. Just the intensity of it really dawned on me, and I didn't make the full squad. Needless to say that I didn't come out of that really well. From about 20, I said to myself, no, I'm going to make this next 2004 Olympic Games team. So I'm going to train twice a day. I tried to replicate all the things that were happening at the camp and how hard I was training, and ended up getting an injury. Long story short, physio, doctor, surgeon, but I didn't have the resources of sports physio. I had to go to GP and normal doctors. So when I ended up at the surgeon, it was because they thought it was coming from my back. And basically the surgeon said, you've got to quit football. And I said, no, why? And they said, because it hurts when you're running around, and you run around to play football. And I said, well, how about I just stop running around? And I became a goalkeeper in the surgeon's office. So back then, it wasn't about playing for Man United or Barcelona or Real Madrid. It was about, you do your best, you get into your state team, you get selected for a nice, I got into All-Star 11s, but you didn't do anything. There was no tournament that you went to, there was no Under-20s World Cup. So I had no idea about that, but it was that moment where I was watching the Olympic opening ceremony and I saw people, and I thought, even though I can't play professionally and make an income, I can become an Olympian. And that was a huge driver for me moving on. I was working at the Victorian Institute of Sport. I was seeing Olympians every day, and it just motivated me enough that I could continue in that gap of, hey, you should really be doing a real job by now as a 20-something, because we didn't have, there was a gap in the National League. I'd played in the Ansett Summer Series and the National Leagues as a field player, but then there was a gap between that and the A-Leagues, as we call it now, or the W League when it was incepted in 2008. So that was my driving force, playing for Australia, playing at an Olympics, and doing what I needed to do. So in 2002, I debuted for Australia, went to my first World Cup in 2003, and ended up going to the 2004 Olympics. From there, it was I achieved a dream, but when I got to the Olympics, I didn't play a minute. So it kind of just said to myself, what do I need to do now? You got to try and be number one goalkeeper so that you get actually play. And each time I got a setback, I reevaluated stuff. So I became number one goalkeeper. I played in the 2007 World Cup. I couldn't go to an Olympics again because, we didn't qualify as a team for so long. Then I was fortunate enough to be captain and played in the 2010 Asia Cup and lifted the trophy as captain in that team, which was a really special moment. 2012 Olympics came along and we didn't qualify again, so I decided to have a child in that sort of gap year. And I gave birth to Holly in 2013. I think it's important to note how much of a low point having a baby was. I made the decision to have my child. I'd pushed back children so many times. I mean, my husband and I, we got married in 2007, and the plan was to have a child after that, and then I just kept saying, no, I can't because I've got to play and I've got to play and I've got to play. And ended up deciding to have children, in that gap year for the Olympics. And I was really lucky. I got pregnant straight away, and the plan just, really worked really well. I spent a season on the sideline. I was pregnant in that W League season, trying to assist Melbourne victory. There's a photo of me standing next to Jess McDonald. She's a mum, I was becoming a mum, and it was a really important time for me because I wanted to showcase that women do have babies and they're pregnant at the games. And I remember warming up the keepers 3 days before I gave birth. It had to be under C-section because it was breech. So that part started the not to plan, because cesarean meant that you couldn't do anything. You couldn't walk, you had to be looked after for 6 weeks. I remember sitting up on my bed when Holly started crying one night, and it felt like my entire abdomen tore open. And it just gave me a reminder that, yes, I've created a miracle. I'm a superwoman, superhuman, but I'm still only human, and I need to do the right things by my body. But then when I came back, I really wanted to say to the national team, I'm on path. Give me another contract. I'm doing everything I can to get back in, because I was on contract at the time of becoming pregnant. So I wanted to pay that back. I wanted to make sure that they knew that I was doing everything I can. But when I came back into the fold, it was, 14 weeks postpartum. I got a strain in my calf, which was coming from my back, but at the time I didn't realize that. And they really pushed me to the edge at 14 weeks postpartum. So it wasn't good from their behalf, and it wasn't good on my behalf. I should have been like, no, I'm not ready for that. But I was trying to prove myself, and I was trying to say, no, women can come back from having a child. And the coach at the time kept saying, no, you're gonna go into coaching. Don't worry about it. You're just gonna go into coaching. And when I turned up, goalkeeper coach was like, yeah, you really are better than I expected you to be. Like you really are. And I thought, thank you, because I'm still going to do this whether you think I can or not. So, I kept pushing through that moment of depression, because once they said to me, no, you're not coming back into the national team, I spiraled down even further. And I was just a mess at home. It was really hard. All the hormones, as well as being told that you're not going to play for Australia anymore. I ended up going to a coaching course, and I met Ross Aloisi, and he met with me, and I was talking to him. I was venting, basically, that I wanted to play for Australia and I don't know what to do and I need to do it. And he was having some really great conversations with me, and it turned out that he became the Adelaide coach. So all I needed was someone to believe in me, and he was the person at the time. He said, look, I just got the Adelaide job. I saw what playing for Australia means to you live and up close at that coaching course, and I want you to play for Adelaide. If you want to make the Australian team, that means you will play well for Adelaide. So I want to use that to my advantage, and no, you can't live in Melbourne and fly up just for games. You have to actually come and live in Adelaide. And I said, what about the baby? Bring the baby. You know, what about this? Bring her to the training sessions. Don't have to worry. You know, if she's there and you need to be there with the baby, don't worry about it. And it was such an environment where I felt like, hey, I can actually do this. And I had the support of my sister-in-law's sister in Adelaide. She had a young child herself. She would help babysit. My mum would fly in. And that really low point in my career, I can look back on and say, I got through that. I'm a better person because of that. I make sure that the Katrina Gorries, the Tamika Yallops of this Australian team don't have to go through what I did. No, it's okay. It's good. They don't have to do it anymore. And that's why I say big ups to Katrina Gorry, because she wanted a child, she chose to have children. It was on her terms, and she was at a point in her career where she was not in love with football. And, you know, granted, you know, it probably was a low point in her career, but her decisions have made her into the great player that she is today. And I can tell you now that anybody who thinks that women who have children are not going to be able to play like they once did, you're completely mistaken. We are 100 times better than we were prior to having children, because once you have a child, you know what real pain is, right? So top-ups, running, no problem. You know, you don't know what hard work, you don't know what it actually feels like until you have a child, and you don't really believe in yourself that much until you realise how freaking powerful you are to create a human. It's really empowering.